I feel like as we're closing out 2025, we've kind of been on like a reunion tour. We've been having guests back on for a second time, and we've got another one. I'm excited to talk about his new project here in a second. Don't forget to follow Hops and Spirits Bar Conversations on all the social media at Hops Spirits, all one word, and HS Bar Convo on some of those platforms as well. I'm Jonathan Green, the host, and he's a country artist. Has a new album called Barstool Therapy Session 1. It's out now, and he was a guest back in May of 2022 on episode 95. We're now fast forwarding a few years in episode 259. Let's welcome back Jon Wolfe.
How are you, man? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I appreciate you hopping on. And, this is Bar Conversations, and I think I have a general idea of what you might be drinking tonight because, we're going to talk about what you do on the side here in a second. So what are you drinking tonight?
I'm drinking Juan Lobo Tequila Reposado. This is our newest batch. Our Reposado is aged about 7 or 8 months in a single-use Jack barrel.
Ooh.
So it's really a great drink for, and believe it or not, we're in New Braunfels, Texas, but we do have cold weather. So I wore my Big Lebowski sweater for you, and I'm kicking back, and I'm in the festive mood over here.
I like it. And a little drink never hurts to warm you up either, right?
That's right. I mean, and when you own a tequila company, uh, a little drink here and there that might be every day that ends in Y. So we're doing good over here.
No, I love that. And we'll talk about Juan Lobo here in a second. I've got, I don't have any tequila at the moment. So I was trying to figure out, I was like, you know what? Someone that's doing their own thing kind of went their own route, and like you do. Got a little 2XO, a little 2 times oak by Dixon Deadman,
I
little
like it.
American oak. So I'll be sipping on that tonight. And you know, for those that don't know the story behind the name Juan Lobo, that is from your South Texas fans, right? And what they affectionately call you, which inspired the
Yeah.
brand. Is that how that all worked?
Well, Juan Lobo is Jon Wolfe in Spanish, and it was just kind of a affectionate kind of nickname that my fans gave me, um, man, years ago. And sort of South Texas and Corpus Christi was kind of the first market that I started drawing tickets and selling tickets to people that I didn't know. You know, when you first start off as a country singer, everybody in the bar or venue or dance hall, they're related to you in some way, shape, or form, or they're one of your buddies. And so South Texas was really the first place I would show up, and oh wow, there are people actually coming to hear my songs, and I don't know these folks. So it really has been a great market for me, and they just started saying, "Hey, Juan Lobo's coming to town. Juan Lobo's coming to town." And so, I fast forward a handful of years later, I wanted to get into the distilled spirits business, and I wanted to launch a tequila brand, and Juan Lobo Tequila was the right thing. And so uh, the brand has been around now, been in the market for almost 6 years, believe it or not. So we're hopefully getting established.
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, Juan Lobo sounds like a perfect tequila name to me, and you also have fun with those fans now with the tequila and do some backstage tastings with fans. Why did you want to do that? How'd that come to be, and what's that like?
Well, a big part of that is, and as I've been in the world of tequila, and it's something that what I try to make sure that folks know that I'm really immersed in the brand. Um, of course, you got to spend a lot of time in both careers to be a country singer. It takes a lot of dedication. To have a tequila brand, it takes a lot of dedication, and I'm really involved in it from the production element to the marketing element of the brand. And so on the tequila side, a big part of what we deal with in the tequila world is education. So I mean, Tequila is one of those spirits that people have typically not had the best experience with it in the past. So what we're trying to show them is, like, hey, this is not the tequila that your folks brought back home after when they did a cruise, on spring break back in '85. That's not the same tequila. Um, so those tastings are really allow me to talk about the brand, walk through our profiles. We have three expressions: Blanco, Reposado, and Yeho. And I can walk through those expressions, talk about Juan Lobo Tequila, the history behind the brand, talk about the notes that they're tasting, and it's cool because I think fans, especially my fan base, has been around for a while. I mean, I've been on the road pretty much the better part of 15, 16, 17 years, something like that. So they've stuck with me. They know the music, and pre-show tastings gives us a chance to talk about something else. So it's really been a lot of fun. So you educate them on tequila, on Juan Lobo, talk about something different, and it does put everybody in a really good mood before the show starts too. So it's really been a lot of fun to do those.
A win-win for everybody.
Mm, absolutely. Now I have to watch about how much I drink, because then I
You got
hit
to
the
work still.
stage. I have to go to work. So I got to make sure I can remember my lyrics and that type of things.
well, I love the connection that you build, and you're right on like tequila. I mean, that's one that people might have had the Blanco of something, and they're like, man, that's not for me. I gotta chase it with lime or whatever. But man, you get into
Yeah.
the Reposado and the Yeho, and that's a whole different world. And it's cool to see what you've been able to do with the brand. And what was it like to? I mean, you went through the music industry, which is crazy. What was it like to hop in the spirits world, which is also a different kind of crazy, and launch a whole brand?
It's really similar. I mean, the challenges are really similar. I can't honestly, and I think there are some people that have launched brands and they've been, really well capitalized. Honestly, Juan Lobo has been something that we've had to run on a shoestring budget at times. We've really bootstrapped this brand. Um, this will be our third year as presenting tequila for Rodeo Austin. We're the tequila sponsor for Flora's Country Store in Helotes. It's really been awesome to see this brand become legitimate. Um, but for many years, I mean, you're battling, trying to get your name out there. You're trying to convince people it's good tequila. Hey, check it out. Um, and you're challenged financially, which I think is very similar to starting out in country music. Um, and I've said before, I don't know which one's tougher, country music or tequila, but they're both really tough. Um, so you have to love it. You've got to do it for the passion of of the business of the either the music or the tequila. And of course, we would love to, you know, I guess, I think long term you want to make money, right? But you can't start out that way. I mean, if you're going, hey, I want to make a quick buck in the tequila world or a quick buck in the music business, I mean, forget about it. So there's a lot of really similar things in those businesses.
Well, and for you, I read, where I think someone asked you if you could describe yourself in one word, and it was relentless, which I think for both of those things, you kind of have to be. You got to keep pushing forward, going through all those obstacles, all those ups and downs. And I mean,
Yeah.
what's it been like to watch those things, though, grow and take off?
I think it's really awesome because I think when people get into business, whether it's the music business or distilled spirits or whatever it is that they're doing, um, I think most people getting into things, they understand they're going to have to sacrifice a lot and it's going to have to be a lot of hard work. Um, something I've learned along the way is that, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, take the amount of work that you think it's going to take, and then like times 10. So that's what you learn along the way. You go, wow, I wasn't prepared really in the beginning for what it would really take to make it successful. And once you sort of wrap your head around that, at least in my case, I've I've kind of settled in, going, hey, it's part of the, they always say don't hate the player, hate the game. I mean, it's just kind of part of it. So um, I've developed that sense of, when you say relentless, it's like you develop that sense of kind of thick skin and stick to it, and you know, you never take no for an answer. So when someone says no, you use those sales skills and say, well, let me reframe this question or this ask. And you just, you just try to keep finding a new path forward, and I think that is something that I've learned a lot in this process.
Well, no, I was gonna say, you got the tequila Juan Lobo. You also, like I said, do this thing called music, some country music. Now, did you grow up when it comes to music, like in a musical family, or were you, the people playing instruments, or were they just, listening to music? What was that early life like for you with around music?
Yeah, my stepfather was a bass player in our church. My sister is still a great singer, and she really, in our family, I wasn't the original singer. It was my sister, and I grew up in a Pentecostal church where it was a lot about music. So that was just kind of part of my upbringing, and I I really felt like when I was a teenager that singing was not the manly thing to do. That was sort of, something in my head. And then I learned I could sing. So it was a process of sort of, you know, and I never took a voice lesson. It just came naturally for me. And I think early on when you're learning to sing, you're channeling and singing along with your heroes, which early for me was like the crooners. I was a kid. I loved Frank Sinatra, and I loved uh, Harry Connick Jr. These like great crooner songs, and then I discovered. Then Garth Brooks was big in Oklahoma when I was a kid. So growing up, so once I discovered Garth Brooks, it was like you know kind of over from there. I mean, that's because you think about classic singers, crooners, they have a connection to these great country singers. Especially, I call George Strait the Frank Sinatra of country music. He really is. He's the voice. He's that voice and that vibe. So it was kind of an easy jump for me to go from the Sinatra and the crooners over to the traditional country singers.
Well, at the end of the day, all good music is good storytelling and can pull people in. And you mentioned Garth. I think your first concert was Garth in Tulsa, and that's when you're like, I
Yeah.
want to do. Is that when you said I want to do that? What he's doing on stage?
It was, yeah. It in the back of my mind, I was like, how can how can I do that? How can I be that guy? Um, and Garth was really great at taking you through these different emotions. I wasn't old enough to drink, but um, the honky tonk songs like "Ain't Going Down Till the Sun Comes Up," and then next thing you know, he's playing the dance. So I've always been such a fan of that concept. Um, I think a lot of times in country music, especially nowadays, a lot of the sort of the messages or the storylines are very much the same. We've kind of that's happened in our genre, and so looking back on those guys, it would be like, make you cry on one song and then, make you want to go drink a beer on the next song. And it's that emotional sort of ride that you take with them. That's what got me. I just was blown away by that. And it stuck with me to this day. So,
Well, I
really
mean,
big part of my life.
I was gonna say you talk about those guys, George, Garth. I mean, you go down Clint Black, Alan Jackson, those influences. I mean, clearly they still kind of have an influence on sort of how you frame what you kind of want to do to this day. I mean, so clearly
Yeah.
that's pretty impressive what they were able to do.
Well, for sure, man. And I feel like, you know, all of my records and Merle Haggard was a big influence on it, still is, you know. Um I think all of my records have been influenced by those guys in some way, shape, or form. Um the newest album, Barstool Therapy, is probably pulling from it definitely pulls from the Haggard side of things for me. And it is and you're right, it's impressive how uh, you know Jake Worthington's one of my close buddies, and Braxton Keith, and these guys are all those guys are younger than me, but they're all influenced and still listening to those records. It's really impressive to know that one of my favorite albums is Back to the Barrooms by Merle Haggard. And I don't know what year that was. I mean, it's probably, I feel like it was right around 1980 or something of that nature. And it just resonates the same. It's just really impressive. So, um, I think, just a few things running through my mind that, like, Jamie Johnson spent a lot of years at the Opry. He didn't feel like he, um, you know, was in a place to write, but he felt like his mission at that time was to sing that older music and those older artists, to keep that alive, because it's so huge. It's impressive. It really is. And so I go back to those records over and over again. Yeah, it's Amber and I have a one room over is my man cave, and uh, I've got a lot of vinyl, so we were just listening to old Ray Price stuff, which, I mean, come on, man. It's just, it's timeless. So that's really what influences me to try to make those types of records. I mean, what can I do to really put my heart and soul in this? Take these things that I've learned from these other artists and do my version of that, and just try to make the absolute best thing I can.
Now, if I remember from our last conversation, though, you didn't hop into music right away. You went down the finance degree, the oil fields, and then somehow you ended up on the stage. Is that right? Did I remember
Yeah.
right?
Well, it was, so I worked I have a finance degree from Colorado State University, Fort Collins. But I was singing when I was in college, just for all my buddies, and I really didn't know the path to be a country singer. The world has, sort of there's so much information, out, and it's easy for a kid growing up now to, how do I be a country singer? Or, this is how you do it. You know, Not that I like grew up in like 1950 or anything, but it's, I'm in college in the early 2000s, and so, for me, and growing up in a small town in Oklahoma, I didn't really know the path to be a country singer. I knew I had that passion and desire to do it, but I also had other interests in life. And part of me wanted to be, a Wall Street trader, and you know, part of me wanted to just kind of hang it up and be a fly fishing guide for the rest of my life, and go work on a ranch in Montana. Um, so when I graduated college, I got a great opportunity with British Petroleum, and actually worked in Chicago on their U.S. Oil Americas trading floor. And that was my first job out of college. I can't believe that they trusted me with that kind of money. But, and so, that was pursuing that side of my interest. And, they transferred me back south. I wanted to get closer to home in Tulsa, but they transferred me to Houston. And, part of my soundtrack moving to Texas was, Pat Green, 3 days, and kind of digging into all of my country music. And I found an open mic night in Interloop, Houston, and started playing, you know, cover songs and just got myself out there, and eventually decided to leave my job and pursue the life of a country singer. So it really goes back, you know, that would have been 20 years ago, starting that effort.
Well, and what was it? You were born in Oklahoma, yet you got into the Texas country scene, like you said, about 20 years ago. And there were several artists, kind of coming online then. Randy Rogers, your roommate Hayes Carl, and others. What was that time like back then?
Man, it was super, super cool. And I hate being that guy that's like, yeah, back in the day, I would hang out down here and Hayes Carl walk in. It's like, I know I'm sounding like that guy now. Um, and, these guys will have some of the same stories eventually. Braxton's going to be like, yeah, one time me and Jake Worthington were hanging out. Um, but it was a really cool environment. And so, the Texas music scene had, sort of the way that it's been told to me, and sort of the information I've learned. If you think about it, it's like, you know Robert Earl Keen was sort of it was sort of like the days of Jerry Jeff Walker kind of rolled into, you know Robert and what he was doing, and that kind of rolled into Pat Green. Pat was sort of the first one to take what Robert and Jerry Jeff were doing and took it to the college kids in a way. And then sort of coming out of the Pat thing is Randy, and that's about the time I started. I was behind those guys a few years. I always say I kind of don't belong to like a certain, you know, I chased Aaron Watson around on the road. So I was more kind of tied to Watson early on, the traditional um, thing that was happening in Texas music. So, but yeah, at the time I was going down to Kay's Lounge, and Ryan Bingham was walking in. He was, out doing his thing. Stoney, Randy was still playing. They were all still playing little beer joints and dance halls. I was roomies with Hayes at the time. So Interloop Houston was really, really, really cool. Um, and it was a scene. So, after I left BP, and, you know, and I just was going to be a really broke country singer for many years. That was the beginning of many years. Um, you know, Everybody was out all the time. So, I mean, I was playing Blanco's Bar and Grill, which was, they call me a Blanco's baby, which is Roger Krager and Corey Morrow were Blanco's babies. So we were playing, there was Blancos, there were certain, um, Mucky Duck it still is a great listening room, but Mucky Duck was where I would go see Hayes Carl. There was a lot happening, and there were a lot of venues. And so there's just a scene. You were out sometimes 3 and 4 nights a week, and you're playing an open mic. You're playing a beer joint. You might get a chance to play, get a dance hall gig somewhere. What was cool is that people would listen to, you know, when people asked me if I was ever in a cover band, and it's kind of interesting because like if you played a country cover, like that was modern at the time, you would be like, get out of here, guys. So all my covers were Willie and Waylon and, you know, were old school. And then I would put in my own songs, So we were just lucky to have that opportunity, instead of having to hack it out in like a top 40 cover band for, you know, hours on end. So it was really a welcoming environment.
Well, and then, like I said, fast forward just a few years after that. Like I said, last time we talked, you had just put out your album, Dos Corazones, which was created during the initial lockdown when you spent 11 days out in far west Texas. What was it like, back then, to kind of disconnect? Because you tour, you stay busy, and kind of do some introspective songs and things like that on that record.
Well, that kind of, I think really my commercial career kind of starts with the release of It All Happened in a Honky Tonk in 2010. And I think my focus in 2010, from 2010 to 2020, I released It All Happened in a Honky Tonk, Natural Man, Any Night in Texas, Feels Like Country Music, Live at Floors, and right in there was Live at Green Hall. So there were like, technically, I guess, what is that? 4 albums and like 6 albums in that 10-year span. And I think my focus during that time frame was, I was really kind of reared in the George Strait world, in that the songs that spoke to me and the stuff that I loved would be stuff that felt very modern, but yet traditional, and that were kind of, I guess you kind of put it, kind of radio friendly stuff that you know. So in that time frame would have been Airport Kiss and That Girl in Texas and I Don't Dance and Smile on Mine and Boots on a Dance Floor. All that stuff happened, and I had kind of just gotten to a point where, and I'm really proud of all my records, and I think most of my albums would have 14 or 15 songs on them. Maybe see, I think that a lot of my album cuts, my fans have really gotten into. So there's just a lot of music over that period of time, in my opinion. And it was a certain thing. I would write a certain amount on each album, but I cut a lot of outside music by a lot of great songwriters. And that was my formula at that time. And touring was probably the best it had been for me in 2019. I was probably at sort of at a really good place. And when the pandemic hit, I felt like, and maybe I was just drinking too much or something. I don't know. But, I remember telling Amber, I said, we can do these shows and have a sold out night and everybody's singing every single word. And and that's something about my fan base that really digs into the lyrics. And I'm talking like album cuts, man. They're asking me for stuff that I'm like, I don't even remember how to, but so I was really proud of that body of work, but I wanted to, I felt like I wanted to give people something different. I did. I felt like, I want to dig deeper and do something different for them. And that's where Dos Cortizones came about. And I've got a really great creative team. My producer, Dave Brainerd, and my co-writer, and Dave is a co-writer and producer. And then Tony Ramey is a great buddy of mine. He's basically family to me, and co-writer. And so we create, we had that opportunity to go just create and dig deeper into other places in country music. And so the album, it's like, I think it's awesome to me still to this day. But I wrote a lot on it. It was a lot more co-writing. It was just a little more crafty, more storytelling. Like Two Hearts and Terlingua, the Western, I would have never probably cut a Western on my old, those other records. So it just gave people, I think, a different, we still sing those songs, but it gave them a different angle and a little bit more to sink their teeth into.
Well, and then, like I said, you just put out your latest album, Barstool Therapy Session 1. It came out on November 7th. And I believe you shared that this is, quote, the most personal collection of the songs you've ever put together. So, how were you able to kind of do that across those 8 tracks? And what was it like setting this bad boy free?
Well, so the fact that it's session one tells you that there's more coming. So there is a bigger Barstool Therapy, um, a bigger Barstool Therapy project that we'll announce for next year. But I would say when I say it's the probably the most personal, and I've also kind of said this is kind of me, like on default in a lot of ways. It's I think with Dose, most of my records are sort of a are have a theme. Um, I guess you could call them concept records to some extent. It All Happened Honky Tonk was its thing, and Dos Corazones was definitely a concept record. Um, these songs really didn't have like a particular. It was sort of writing session after writing session, and sometimes as an artist you can create these rules, I guess you could say. You create rules around either
Box
what you're
yourself in.
writing. Yeah, I'm going to create a rule around this record or a rule around what I'm writing. And sometimes that, I think, can affect the record in a way that it's really, you can kind of put up some walls or that type of thing. And so I think this record is the least amount of that stuff for me. I don't drink anymore. On this album is one of my favorite tracks on this album. Um, you know, Wherever the Wind Blows is literally like talking about all of those things I've done in my life. Um, so it really it was a lot of fun to put this album together. And again, it really wasn't like it was just me trying to take each song at a time and say, let's write this thing. And I'm not afraid to go there on this record or on these songs. Let's just see what happens. So it's really been a lot of fun to put this album together.
Well, and on the older I get, more country I'm getting to be. That's kind of a little bit maybe autobiographical for
Yeah.
you. What was it like to kind of reflect on where you are now in your life and in your career on kind of that song?
Yeah. I think it's kind of cool to get to a place where you don't, I hate saying it, but it's like you don't care as much about maybe what other people think, or that you're trying to impress Nashville or impress the labels or and I think maybe that's again why this record really feels free to me, and it feels fun and personal. Um, Part of that song is, Amber and I moved from Austin down to New Braunfels. We kind of live out in the country a little bit, whatever that means nowadays, outside of town. Um, but I think it's just a general feeling of how I feel about my life at this juncture. And the song kind of sonically chases down some kind of Hank Jr. esque. stuff, and it's just a lot of fun to dive into those sounds. I think Dave is my producer again. I I think he's the best, to be honest with you. I think he's at the top with all of the producers in Nashville, and Dave just gets what I do, and he tries to help me create a landscape that feels like that it's not something that I'm just regurgitating, something that's already been done. It has this connection to the past, but it feels fresh, and that's what we go after. Sort of reintroducing that sound to people. So that song definitely I feel like is a capstone of the record, and that's why it's the first song on the album. Yeah.
Well, and then the title track to it all is Barstool Therapy, which you could maybe say is a little bit of a whiskey soaked confessional. Was there like what inspired that one? To kind of maybe kick off all this.
Well, what we're doing right now, dude, it's
It wasn't
cheers.
tequila soaked confessional.
Yeah, yeah. Barstool Therapy, and I'm kind of one of these guys that I like. I come up with one-liners pretty consistently. Amber's probably got them cataloged somewhere, but Barstool Therapy was just literally I would use that as a phrase. I said I'm going to go meet my buddy Pete for some Barstool Therapy. And so Barstool Therapy, kind of, what is that? Barstool Therapy. That's interesting. That should be a song. And so turn a one-liner into a song, and me and Dave and Tony hacked away at it. We wrote that song like 3 times. We we wanted it to just be, you know, something that was definitely a throwback, but not a copy of something. And so it took us a minute to kind of put that together. And I just feel like Barstool Therapy is such a cool song, man. And it's not short. It's like 4.5 minutes long. It's got saxophone in it. It's a ride on its own, on own right. Um, so yeah, I mean, while older I get is kind of like a sort of a capstone on the record, Barstool Therapy, the title track, it's definitely like sort of the overall, I guess you could say, the overall vibe of the album. Um, so we're really proud of that. And have you seen the video for it with
I
Uncle
have not
Laser?
yet.
Okay, you got to go see it, man. We bring it alive with Uncle Laser. So if you haven't seen the
Oh,
video, go check it
I,
out.
I I will have to do that. I've listened to the album a few times because it is a fantastic album. You also got to collaborate with Randy Rogers on Tequila Cowboys.
Yeah,
Someone who came into the Texas scene like you did, like I said earlier,
yeah,
also enjoys a good drink, has his own whiskey.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so,
yeah.
what was it like to collaborate with him on that song?
It was really cool, man. And Randy lives in New Braunfels, so that's a little bit of a benefit of living here. There's a lot of artists that live here, a lot of musicians, and so um, Randy. This would have been last year, so um, uh, it's crazy how long it takes to kind of finally get your music out. But Randy was on the road a bunch, and he and I we wrote together like years ago, and had a great time. Um, didn't end up recording what we put together, but since we moved to New Braunfels, just I kept in touch with Randy and said, "Hey man, we're in town. Got my producer here. Got my co-writer. I'd love to write with you." And Randy was super cool to make it happen. We kind of teed the song up for him because we knew we didn't have a lot of time. So I was telling my guys, I'm like, "Hey man, we need something good." And I want to make sure like we got a ball rolling. I don't want Randy Rogers coming in here and being bored and trying to figure stuff out. Um, so he showed up, and we had that song kind of teed up a little bit, and we knocked it out of the park. So it's also one of my favorite songs that we've ever written. I love the story behind it in terms of the story that's being told. I mean, it's kind of like a bunch of guys that go out on Fridays, they meet up, They're going to go in their minds. They're Texas Rangers, but they're really kind of the local town drunks. so, so it's got a good kind of this good storyline, and it was a lot of fun cutting the vocal with him. He's a super pro, and we had a lot of fun. It's a really cool song.
I'm just amazed you got him to have time. The man does not stop working.
No, like I said, I wanted to make sure we were teed up. He kind of jokes with me because he goes, man, he showed up and said, hey man, we got this song. We got the first verse kind of rolling. Here's a little bit, and the first thing he said, he's like, hell, what do you guys need me for? I said, well, shit. No, because we kind of teed it up for him, had a little bit. We knew he didn't have a lot of time, and so, but he jumped in and sank his teeth in it, and put his stamp on it, and it was really a lot of fun.
Well, like I said, the records, session one's fantastic, and you've talked about these guys a lot, Dave and Tony, and kind of what you guys are able to do, and yeah, I think you said the process with them just gets better and better. Like you keep
Mhm.
locking it in and further. And what's that like creative process? How does it flow when the three of you get to collaborate and kind of have some fun and make some good music?
Man, a lot of it is about the hang, I mean, and um, in recent years, it's revolved a little bit around tequila. But it's the hang. It really is, and it's just we love hanging out together. And there's a lot of stories that are being told. Because all all three of us have uniquely different backgrounds. You know, and we've all three been around a minute, so do we've got a lot of history. Um, but it really starts as the hang, and just kind of talking about other projects that stuff that we've done together or stories. And typically I might have a song idea or two, and that's really how it begins. It's really, I think when we start the process, it's we probably spend more time hanging out in the kitchen, eating, drinking, catching up, and then eventually we get to it. And what's really great about the 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 teamwork aspect of it is Dave's musical intuition and production element. So he's already hearing how he would produce this song, instrumentation, uh, some arrangements might be coming to mind already. Tony is a lyrical genius, literally. I mean, the guy's and a phenomenal singer, performer, the whole nine. And I think it's really fun with them because they lock into who I am as an artist and how I want to sort of um, sculpt the song and how I want to push it a certain way, either for live performance or essentially just the connection with fans. Um, so I think it's just a lot of fun for when all three of us are locked in. And I mean, there's a lot of guys that write with a lot of other co-writers, which nothing against that. And it's, it works. And maybe I should write with more other, co-writers. But um, for me and like what I'm going after, Tony and Dave, so far we've kind of, in my opinion, we've been batting 1,000. So I feel like we're just getting better and better. And I've said this before. I mean, I think there are times that um, artists will go and work with a certain producer or team, and they do one project and they move on. And that's okay too. But I feel like that just like anything in life, you put in the work and you have the history and you develop some traction, you find yourself getting really good at that thing. So I think me and Dave and Tony uh, have a handful of records left in us, and I think we're going to kind of keep this creative process going.
Hey, there's something to those repetitions that make things go a little easier, a little smoother, and I don't know, they just work, and it's working. And for you, you're a proudly independent guy when it comes to the music biz. You've released a lot of albums that way. Why has been kind of doing that and going your own route been so important to you and been an important part of your career?
Well, I think I've had a couple record deals in my career. Um, I think the last one was close to was probably about 10 years ago, that I had signed to Warner Brothers. And those record deals can be great for people. They can. I don't think I ever sort of set out necessarily to be, uh, independent or a signed artist. You know what I mean? I think, Kevin Fowler is one of my good buddies, and Kevin always jokes that he's kind of like me. We haven't really been successful in record deals. So Kevin, he told me one time that there are two things he can kill: uh, record deals and cold beer, record deals and long necks. So we just kind of had bad luck in that world. So I don't think there was necessarily a I think had a record deal worked for me and had gained some traction and some success, maybe I would be, a signed artist. But I do think that from what I can tell, being able to, I've never really had anybody tell me what to do musically, so I think that's an obvious benefit. I don't know if I've been on a record label of Dos Cortizonas that ever come around, or even Barstool Therapy, So I do have a lot of satisfaction in making the music that I really want to make.
Well, and then like you like to be you. You get to do the things you like to do, and I know one of those things is you like to wear boots on stage, but maybe some sneakers when you're traveling. You've mentioned wearing boots can put you in a certain state of mind. What is it about those boots that kind of help you when you get up there on stage?
Well, I think uh, I I think I'm kind of cut out of that old school cloth. I still wear uh, I still wear a cowboy hat on stage. I wear a hat a lot, actually, and I think I'm still a you know, traditional country singer at the end of the day. Um, you know, I think that it, our world has changed. I'm not, going out back and uh, in the back 40 and roping and riding anymore. So I'm going to say I'm an urban cowboy at this point in time. But all that history is kind of built in there for me. Growing up in a small town in Oklahoma and going to school in the mountains in Colorado, and uh, working the not the oil field, but the oil trading floor in Chicago. All that stuff is kind of built into what I do, and you know, I, there was a period of time I thought maybe I was going to be a working cowboy, but I'm an urban cowboy at this point.
There's
But
still
yeah,
hope.
man, there's hey, you never know. I could have another career change. But yeah, man, that's what that stuff is. It's all in my history, and in a live show for me, it's delivering all of that living that I've done and those songs and stories, and we try to make sure that people walk away with a smile on their face for sure.
And obviously you want to put a smile on their face and have a good time when you're on stage. But what's the best part for you about being up on stage every night and getting to share those songs? It's one to put them out on an album. It's another to bring them to life on stage.
I mean, that's it, man. It's really, and as you build a catalog, you build build a career, it's drawing from all those songs, and it's cool to be able to sing those songs, keep them alive. That Girl in Texas was a uniquely different part of my career than Barstool Therapy, but we still play That Girl in Texas and I Don't Dance and Play Me Something I Can Drink To, all the way up through Some Old Bar in the 90s and Feels Like Country Music, Boots on a Dance Floor. So it's just giving them that full experience of all those records. So it's a lot of fun to be able to do that. And there's a lot of fans that have stuck with us all those years, man. They were there when that first record came out, and they're with this most recent one.
Well, and with that history of songs, this next question of mine, I can't wait to ask it because at the start I got to ask what you're drinking, which obviously is some Juan Lobo tequila.
Yeah,
But at the end, I always love to ask this one, and it's what's your favorite song of yours to perform live right now?
man, it's definitely on the new record. I mean, and I got to be honest, like I'm having a lot of fun with all these songs. So we're not playing everything yet. We're playing Older I Get, More Country I'm Getting to Be, Barstool Therapy, Wherever the Wind Blows, and I Don't Drink Anymore. So it's going to be in one of those. It's really interesting. Like I Don't Drink Anymore, and as you start playing these things, they kind of take on a new life too. You hear them differently. So I Don't Drink Anymore has really become one of my favorites. It kind of it's a throwback to a Frank Sinatra kind of crooner vibe, and it's really cool to be able to deliver that live. It's been a lot of fun.
I was gonna say I love that one. A little play on words, or at least plays with your mind a little bit on what you think it's about, and that's I think that's what I love about that question too, is because some of these songs when you play them live, that like you said, they take on a new life. That you could do so many different things, different arrangement, different thing. It could just be the mood of the night, and I just love to see
Yeah,
how live music can be changed, but it's still the same song, but it's so different in a way.
for sure, man. Yeah, we're definitely seeing that with this new record, and like I said, we got more music coming next year. We'll make some big announcements, but and we have a lot of fun with Tequila Cowboys. We're playing Tequila Cowboys. I forgot about that. That's one of my favorites too, man. So it's really cool to kind of take that parts of Dos Cortizones, parts of Any Night in Texas. Feel there's a piece of every record that we play every night, and so you know, at 24, 25 songs is probably about what you can get done in a show. Um, so we're pulling from every record, and it's really cool. They all still work together, you know. Different phases of my career and different, sort of influences, but it's cool to see all these things kind of start to mesh.
I was gonna say for you especially, where you kind of have you've been doing this for a couple years, a couple years now.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, how cool is it to still be able to pull from those early records, and now you have these new ones, and whether it's someone that came in on Barstool Therapy and they get to hear the old ones, or vice versa, kind of introducing folks to new things from you.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. I mean, I think this is sort of full length album number 5 for me, I believe is what it is, and I feel like that's there are some artists that get to that point a lot faster. Um, and I feel like that for some reason, like that's there's some importance to like album 5. I feel like it does bring a depth to the live show. Um, and it's kind of it's hard to describe. I mean, I feel like that the show previous to this album, we were there were always these sort of little lulls in the show that you're trying to figure out, and it as a performer, you're always messing with your set list. You're trying to figure out how does this work, how does that work, but there was always this kind of, for me, up until this album, this spot in the show that I'm like, man, I can't figure it out, and it's totally remedied at this point. You're actually fighting the other way around. You're going, I have too much that I'm trying to say. Um, and not enough time. So I'm assuming it just gets more challenging on that front as you keep going. But I feel like record 5 is kind of a bit of a turning point in building a live show.
I mean, you could just do what Taylor Swift does and go for like 4 hours. I mean,
I might have to extend my show time. You're right.
just
People
have
might go,
another
man,
drink of
I would go
tequila.
see Jon Wolfe, man, but it's long, dude. You'll be there for a while. Yeah.
Oh, well, like I said, I love the album. Folks need to give it a listen. They need to then go deep dive, go down that rabbit hole of what you've also put out. And you've teased this because clearly, as you mentioned, the album is called Barstool Therapy Session 1. So that gives a hint as to what's coming up. I know you can't say too much at the moment. I don't want
Yeah.
to get you in trouble. But what
Yeah.
can folks expect from you? Obviously, we're wrapping up 2025. So what can folks expect from you in 2026?
Well, we're going to start putting out some more singles at the beginning of the year. So we've got a big collaboration, another collaboration coming with me and another Texas artist that we're really excited about. So we'll put out a handful of singles. We're going to announce a bigger project. Um, we're hopefully going to be touring a lot next year. And it's also going to be a big year for Juan Lobo. So, folks that want to learn about Juan Lobo, they can go to juanlobotequila.com. Um, and we're going to see a lot of expansion with the brand that we're excited about, and possibly even some additional expressions or an
Ooh,
additional expression. So we're
okay.
working on some stuff, a founder's reserve, potential high proof Blanco. So there's some different stuff we're working on with the brand, but we'll definitely have a busy year. And again, more country music coming out. So we want folks to follow us and check out what we're doing and get on board with us.
Well, I must say, I don't think anyone would be disappointed when they do that because you've been putting out some good music. And I'm guessing if the music is as good, the tequila matches the music. I mean, I think people are set for a
So
great
far,
night.
so
So,
good, buddy.
I mean, I don't know what more you could ask for. Grab a little tequila, listen to some music. Sounds like a great night to me. And John, man, it's been a blast catching up with you. And man, cheers for sharing another drink with me.
Hey, thanks, buddy. Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.